Welcome back, all. God's Advocate. I was getting ready for the episode. I almost at episode 15. I'm glad I double checked. We are past that, Pat. We are on episode 16. Let's go,
Big
baby.
1-6. Sweet
Yes, sir.
16.
Woo! Look at that. Look at that. About to move out of the house.
Who knew we'd have so much to talk about every week?
Some weeks more than others, obviously. Some weeks are super easy. You know, like, hey, we're talking about this. Got it. Let's do it. Other weeks,
Led by the Spirit, man.
yeah. Well, other weeks were led by the Spirit at the last second. Let's be honest.
Yep.
This is
Yep.
borderline one of those. Borderline one of those.
Could
Yep. Hit you up. I think it was yesterday. That's what's pulling your heartstrings. And you hit me with a verse. So
Oh, man.
we're gonna break that down.
So good.
Yeah, it's a good one too because it made me think. Just because like when I read it at first, I was I'm not sure I'm not sure where you want to take it. It's a good verse, but I wasn't sure where we're gonna expand. But then
Well, listen,
I started digesting it and like thinking about it. And like, I got some stuff too, and I know you do as well.
Listen, when the Holy Spirit hits you and you just can't get it out of your head and you start sharing it with people after person after person after person, I just know that it's ordained by Him, not by me, which is why we have to talk about it.
Boom, there we go, man. And talk about what we shall. But first, this week's fun fact. Fun fact. I'm not sure you knew this, Pat, but over the years, there have been quite a few Bibles that have been printed. There has been. There's actually a Bible that was printed in the 17th century that had a pretty big typo in it, Pat. The publisher put down in the seventh commandment that thou shall commit adultery. Approximately 1,000 of these Bibles made it into circulation before someone realized the mistake. And the Bible then became referred to as the Sinner's Bible, or the Adulterous Bible, or the Wicked Bible.
I mean, understandable.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah,
That probably led some people astray.
maybe. I bet one of those is worth a pretty penny now. 17th century typo?
Yeah, it's got to be pretty rare.
A few bucks, 100%.
When was the printing press even invented?
I don't know.
Do you know who invented it? There's another fun fact. Gutenberg.
Was it? Okay, I wasn't going to guess that.
I don't know how I know that.
Yeah.
Fact check me.
Yes. But, Pat, actually, before we get into the verse, fun story about today, actually. Like I said, I knew we were going to talk about the verse, but I'm like, hey, I'm not sure how much time we're going to get out of that, and I was thinking about what else we could kind of talk about. But I had a busy last couple of days, didn't really have time to do any kind of research or think about the podcast all that much. And then I was leaving work today, had a good day at work, and I was thinking about what we're going to talk about. I got in my car, and on my way home, I know you have a similar drive. It's about an hour or so far, from my house to work. So I always GPS because there's a ton of construction going on right now.
Oh.
And I hit my home in the GPS, and it's like an hour, 20 minutes. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. I'm not going to listen to my GPS. I'm just going to go that way. I'm like, I know I need to head north. I know I need to head east. We're going to go. So I felt like I was moving pretty good. Not sitting in too much traffic, take some side streets and whatnot. But it went from the GPS saying an hour 20, and it took me probably close to 2 hours to get home. And I kind of laughed myself a little bit. Honestly, wasn't even mad, but I was kind of like, okay, God, that's a nice little reminder for me to not be in my own thoughts, to not listen to my thoughts. I need to listen to.
Oh yeah.
Right. Obviously,
that's so good.
yeah. Because like obviously, like as soon as I start listening to my thoughts instead of God's, then obviously God's not GPS. I understand that, but as soon as I start listening to my thoughts, thinking that I know better, that's when you start getting led astray. Then I was kind of like, all right, that's a subtle reminder. It's like, thanks, God, I appreciate that.
Literally, to me, just so you know, that sounds like the beginning of an opening sermon that a high-level pastor would give. Literally, it does. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So many people would be able to relate to that. Like, oh, I've been in that same spot where I thought I knew better, and then bam.
Yeah.
Double the time or 2 hours. Man, that's so good.
Yeah, and the funny thing was too is kind of like I said, I wasn't all pissed off when I was going. Like I felt I was moving pretty good, and then so it felt okay. But then when I looked at reality, how long it was actually taking me, it was kind of like, man, I'm almost not double, but like I had a good half hour, 40 minutes to what it should have been. Even though I felt like I was doing a good job. So yeah,
Bro, that just speaks to me right now.
yeah,
So good.
so good.
That's how sin works. It feels good in that moment, but then looking back at what actually took place is like, whoa, I was way off the mark.
Yeah.
Way
So
off the mark.
so tomorrow I'm probably gonna file the GPS.
That's I would tell you it's probably a good idea.
Yeah. All right, everyone, let's get into this verse. I'm gonna read it here, Pat, and then you break it down, man. All right.
All right.
So, and the God of all grace, who called you to his eternal glory in Christ, after you have suffered a little while, will himself restore you and make you strong, firm, and steadfast.
That is 1 Peter 5, verse 10. For folks that don't know, that is 1 Peter 5, verse 10. I came across this because, like a lot of people, sometimes you'll find yourself scrolling at night, and when you get onto the God part of TikTok or YouTube Shorts or anything like that, it tends to like give you a lot more of that based stuff, right? And I come across Kurt Angle, man, WWE superstar, one of my favorite, not kidding, one of my favorite wrestlers of all time back in the day when I thought wrestling was real, and then it shattered my world into pieces when I found out it was all staged. But Kurt Angle, this man flipped and became a Christian literally overnight, like out of nowhere. And I need to do some more research on that because I think it's just absolutely incredible. But he reads this and then he talks about like his circumstances and the things that he's had going on, and the neck surgeries and him battling addiction, like serious addiction to opiates and alcohol and drugs and all of that stuff. And of course, that massively relates to me, massively, because of all the stuff that I've been addicted to and gone through. But then going through the born again experience, I'm like free from that stuff. I have freedom now in Christ from that stuff. But the verse still applies to me every single day. And I'm just going to read it again. And to the God of all grace, by the way, you are saved not by works. You are saved not by a baptism. You are saved not by all the good, being a good person. You are saved by grace through faith. You are saved by grace through faith. This says, and the God of all grace, who called you to his eternal glory in Christ, after you have suffered a little while. How long is a little while?
However long it takes.
Nobody knows. A
No.
little while. And that's the whole point of it. After you've suffered for a little while, will himself restore you and make you strong, firm, and steadfast. And when I heard this, it is at the exact time that I needed to hear it. The exact time I needed to hear it. Shocker. But I sent it to you because when you decide to become a follower of Christ, and I don't mean like when you decide to become a Catholic or when you decide to become a Christian, not when you decide to conform to religion, when you decide to become a follower of Christ, saying it with your lips and believing it in your heart, there's going to be a target on your back immediately. That's why in the book of Ephesians, it talks about wearing armor, because we are going into battle on a daily basis. After you have suffered for a while, suffering is part of being a follower of Christ. Suffering is part of being a follower of Christ. And if you think about why, well, what did Christ have to go through? The ultimate version of suffering. What did all of his disciples have to go through after Christ was risen and resurrected? Every one of them got tortured or killed or martyred for their beliefs. You will go through suffering, and our suffering doesn't hold a candle to what they went through. It really doesn't. But when I read this, it allowed me to zoom out of my flesh. It's like, you ever seen, I feel the spirit right now. Have you seen, I know you have, Doctor Strange? Doctor
I know,
Strange
I
from the
know,
Marvels?
I know who Doctor
Marvel?
Strange is. I don't think I've ever watched one of his standalone movies, but yes, I
Well,
know
you
you're talking about.
watched Marvels, the
Yeah,
Avengers, and all of that stuff.
yeah,
There's
yeah,
a
yeah.
point in time where the guru that's talking to Doctor Strange, he's like, oh, I don't believe in like this acupuncture and all this stupid stuff. Are you kidding me? That's how you fix the C7 spinal cord complete injury is through these stupid things and chakra. And she goes, boom, and just smokes him. And his whole spirit comes out of his body. Do you remember that part?
No.
I can't believe it.
You
I
painted a
can't believe
beautiful
you don't
picture,
remember
though.
that. His whole spirit comes out of his body, and then she reels it back in. He's like, what'd you just do to me? That is exactly how I felt when I read this. I was in my flesh. I mean, so in my flesh. I was angry about, you name it, at work, issues at work, and everyone can relate to, like, when you have issues at work that are outside of your circumstances to be able to control, but you're still upset about it. It's exactly what was happening to me and where I was at, and then boom, I read this, and I'm like, boom, spirit comes out where it's like, yeah, bro, yeah, you think you're suffering, you think you're going through tough stuff, you're not. And even if you are actually suffering, which I am, I believe that I am, I'm going through some suffering, the reality is God has called you to be able to get through the suffering, and praising him through the suffering, the valleys, and praising him through the mountaintops, the times where you're just like, ah, I made it. Praising him no matter what. And then, okay, I'm going to tell the story, but I'm not going to give too much detail because I don't want to. So I'm driving home yesterday, and I literally had like the worst day. The worst day. Things weren't going my way. I was totally in my head, had like starting to develop like a little bit of a, like, imposter syndrome. Like, you know what imposter
Yeah.
syndrome is, where it's like, hey, I know I'm really good at it. I've been doing this for like almost a decade and a half. All of a sudden, I don't think that I'm good enough. And da da da. By the way, where do those thoughts come from?
Double.
100% they're from the devil. But I started believing them, and I'm like, oh my gosh, because all these things, as evidenced by things going wrong, that's where my head's at, right? I'm driving home, and I call my partner in crime, my wife, and I'm like, blah, 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 this, that, blah, blah, blah. And she goes, hey, I'm going to remind you of something. I'm like, what? She's like, you say this to me all the time when things are going bad or whatever, and I'm losing. I'm like, what is it? She goes, life and death is in the tongue, and it stopped me in my tracks. Poof, spirit comes out for a moment, and then I go right back in the flesh. I'm like, all right, but like, what do you mean? You know, like, what are you talking about? And she goes, well, how did God form the earth? I'm like, I don't know, dust and ashes. Like, I don't really know. I'm still like kind of excited at this moment. She goes, he spoke it into existence. She said, let there be light. Boom, there was light. How did God give man dominion over animals and the birds and the seas and all of that? Spoke it into existence. Man will have dominion over the animals of the land, the sea, and the sky. Boom.
And then to add to that, he also had Adam name all the beasts. When obviously
Right.
God could have named them as well, but that was God teaching Adam there's power in the tongue, power in the voice.
Boom. 100%. There's also death in the tongue, as evidenced by, and this is like, you know, where people would subscribe to that theory, which you used to, and I used to, The Secret. Remember we've talked about The Secret like a long
Yeah,
time ago?
long time ago, yeah.
And we were like, oh yeah, it's we would say it's the universe. You speak it into existence, and the universe was, dog, that was God from day one.
It's having we were
That
talking
was
about
God from,
we were talking about having faith without knowing we were talking about having faith.
yes, correct.
Yes.
Which is like how I started this off. You are saved by grace through faith. Through faith. And having faith in God ordaining your steps and knowing that things are going to have a positive outcome because God is involved. That's the power. Woo! That is the power of the tongue, life and death. So what I prayed for last night and on the way to work this morning was God to hold my tongue. There's a passage in the Bible that it says, what man can tame the tongue? No man can tame the tongue. Only
Interesting.
God. Only God. That's the most devastating weapon that we have, is the tongue. Wild, right? But it's so true. Oh, yeah. I see how interested you are.
My
That
no,
I'm
my
actually gonna
pride
look
no,
up a
my
verse.
pride is roaring up, to be honest. I'm like I feel
Oh,
like,
oh, even better.
yeah, I kind
That's
of
how you
like
know we hit a tuning fork.
yeah, maybe so. I was kind of I feel like I think I'm pretty good at thinking before I say something stupid.
You say that now.
Yeah.
No, I gotta find it. Here, I got it. Life and death. And the tongue. Here we go. The tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit.
Mm. What's that mean, Pat?
And of course, right next to it, bro. I said this to you earlier. From the fruit of their mouth, a person's stomach is filled. With the harvest of their lips, they are satisfied. The tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit. And then he who finds a good wife finds what is good and receives favor from the Lord. So earlier I'd said, this is before we did the podcast, I told my wife and I was ranting and raving, and she goes, life and death is in the tongue. So I also say is like, marry the right person, find the right person that will get you back on course. Kind of like you're driving a car and it gets, you're kind of going off in the lane. It goes, whoop, get you right back in, get you right back in the lane. But what does that mean? The tongue has power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit. So you can love either side. You can love death, and you'll eat the fruits of death. You can
Mm.
love life, and you'll eat the fruits of life. And how your tongue speaketh, so what happens, so doeth. There's another passage in the Bible that says, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So there's something else that happened over this weekend, and I kind of like talking about, and maybe we can do this a little bit more on these podcasts, is how is God working through our lives,
Yeah.
and what is he showing us through our lives. And this last weekend, we had really some awesome revelations that we were watching play out right in front of us. Things that we've been praying for quite a while that haven't really come to fruition except for now. Just all of a sudden, the pieces lined up. Like, it was incredible. So my wife and I, we pray almost every night we go to bed. We'll kind of pray out loud to each other, to God, and like praying for each other and praying for additional things. And one of the things that we've been praying about most earnestly is for God to bring us lost sheep, people that have lost their way, that need God in their lives. We've been praying for that. And bro, I'm telling you, Delia is from this area, and she has some friends that she used to go to high school with that she recently reconnected with, and brought them over our house, and we had a bonfire, and she gets to talking with the girls, and it's just me and this other dude sitting by the fire. And what are we doing? We're just like, he's talking about sports and talking about other things. And what do I want to
Yeah.
talk about? You know what I want to talk about, but I
You
can't
bet.
find a way to talk about it. I couldn't find, because we don't know each other, right? I
Yeah.
couldn't find a way to really talk about it. And I find the wildest things happening. He's like swearing in front of me, and then he's apologizing. I didn't tell him I don't swear.
Yeah.
But he's like, oh, I'm sorry, man. I'm just like cussing and da da da. I'm like, I mean, it's fine. Just so you know, you'll feel the presence of God within people from time to time. Like my grandparents, I would never swear in front of them, ever, just because they were super godly people, and I could feel that presence. You know what I mean? And I'm starting to realize that, like, wow, I'm carrying God with me wherever I go. Like, it just happens that way. Even my team reacts kind of the same way. But he's like, oh, I noticed you don't swear. And I'm like, yeah, there's a big reason for that. It's not because I like willingly don't want to. He's like, well, what is it? I'm like, ding, 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 here we go. I was like, well, I had a full-on experience with God like 10 months ago. He's like, what is it? Like, what do you mean? And I tell him the whole testimony.
Yeah.
And again, when you're telling somebody something and they're full-on receiving it, you know the difference between somebody just going like listening to respond versus
Yeah.
listening to like take it all in. So I tell him this whole thing, and he's just like sitting there silent, bro. Silent, just staring at the fire like. I'm like, so how does this all land on you? I'm like, how does this all land on you now that I told you? He's like, dude, I'm happy for you. And I know what that answer is. I know what that actually means, by the way, because 11 months ago, I was in his same spot. If I were to listen to me
Yeah.
11 months ago and I didn't know me, I would say, man, I'm happy for you. That's great. What does that actually mean? It means, man, I'm happy for you, but why isn't that happening for me? That's what that answer is,
Yeah.
right? And I know it.
Or that will never happen to me. Right.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. He's like, I'm really happy for you. That's awesome. I'm really glad. He's like, I've been, I've been kind of going to church a little bit here and there, but I don't go to church as much. Not really having like experiences that you've had, but I had something similar, something like that happened about 3 weeks ago. I'm like, what do you mean? What was it? He tells me, he's on some normal service call, and some lady comes running out and says, God has a word for you. And he's like, what? It's like, what do you mean? This is a couple months ago, so it was like really cold outside.
Okay.
He's like, well, what do you mean? I don't understand what you mean. She goes, can I just hop in your car with you real quick? He's like, okay, just like hop in because the heat's on.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's fine. He doesn't remember a word that she said. All he remembers, he was bawling his eyes out in front of a total stranger. He's like, but Pat, what I felt in that moment was like, I can't explain it. He's like, I can't explain what I felt. I just felt like love, and I felt like warmth, and I felt like this like freedom. He was having a tough time articulating it, bro. And he's like, I felt like this freedom, and he's like, I don't know, I've never felt that before in my life. He's like, I think I have felt it when I was younger, when I was like a kid, but I haven't felt it as an adult. I was like, it kind of felt like being an iPhone at 10% battery and just getting plugged in, right? He's like, yes. I'm like, oh
Do
yeah,
you believe him that he doesn't remember what she said?
100%.
That he doesn't remember what she said?
He was trying to tell me what she said. I guess she said it several words, like something
Yeah.
along the lines of like, God has planned for you. God has a plan for you.
Okay.
She was like prophesying to him.
Yeah.
What actually happened was she had the power of God on her and was trying to communicate with him.
Yeah.
God was trying to reach him. And anytime that happens where God is really trying to reach somebody, like you have to know that you have something, he has got something big planned for you, something that you need to be aware of, and something that he's like, hello, McFly, hello, like, are you going to really just veer back off again? He's trying to reach all of us in some way, shape, or form. How do you think he got to you, Josh? Same way. Hello, McFly. We're
Yeah.
doing a podcast, episode 16. That's the way he had to get to you. The way he had to get to him was wake him up. But
I I lost
he's
my
now
I lost
sitting.
my job to get to you, Pat.
Well, you didn't get to me. You're getting to him,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is by way of me. But yeah, I mean, you had to have something bad happen, right? So I'm sitting here talking to this guy about this, and I'm taking it all in. I'm like, man, this is absolutely incredible. Like, I love this. And out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks, right? What I kept hearing on his heart was unforgiveness. What I kept hearing on his heart was anger, resentment, other things he was talking about before he was talking about this whole thing. And I could see, bro, I could see this stuff on him just weighing him down. And then we got to talking about God, and like he just like lifted up. Life and death is in the power of the tongue. The power of life and death is in the tongue. Like like the Bible talks to us about edifying each other. That's building each other up in the faith. That's how the church was supposed to be always. Exactly what we experience outside of my backyard by a bonfire. I started off by saying, he's like, well, how did you find this? Like, how did this happen? How did you change? You're not swearing anymore, whatever. I'm like, I found God not in a church, bro. He's like, where? I'm like, I found him right where you're sitting. Right where you're sitting. I dove right in where you're sitting into the dirt. And I was doing this, and I just started explaining it more. I tell you that our prayers are being answered because we're asking for specific things from God that are aligned with the will of the Father. The will of the Father is to go out and make disciples of all nations, of all people. Go and create more followers of Jesus Christ. Wake people up. The lost sheep. That's why we're trying to bring the lost sheep in, so my wife can talk to the wives, and I can talk to the men. And that's what happened over this weekend, dude. And I was
Okay,
so
man.
encouraged. And then I walk in on Monday. I had the worst day ever. Like, I think to myself, that makes no sense. But you know what? It makes freaking perfect sense, because what would the devil want to do after an amazing weekend like that? He'd like to hit me with a hard right hook.
Yeah.
And that's what he did. And thank God for my wife, who got me right back on the right path. And I prayed about it and repented about it. And boom. Today was just an incredible day. So it's like, bro, I mean, I love it. What are your thoughts? I'm sorry, I've been talking this whole time.
No, it's good, man. It's good. I would want to point out, and you kind of mentioned how the only way that suffering can be fixed is like through faith. But to go off the exact verse, it says, Christ will himself restore you and make you strong, firm, and steadfast. And that's one of the things that kind of stood out to me reading this, because something you and I have talked about like a lot is like where I was mistaken in my prayers before, because I kept asking for him to give me the strength to fix my problems, right? It's not about me fixing them, it's about having faith in him, and he's going to fix them. Like, we don't have the power to do that. And that's something I still kind of struggle with, and I almost like catch myself, I still have to like self-correct myself sometimes. That was just keeping that faith in him, knowing that he will fix it. So that kind of that part definitely jumped out at me. Um,
For sure.
yeah,
And that's the hardest thing to do is like, you always hear Christians talk about like, hey, give it to God, and they don't ever tell you about how to give it to God.
yeah, lot easier said than done, for sure.
For sure, for
Yeah,
sure. But it depends on your situation and all of that. Like I what I struggle with is like an internal anger and internal frustration, and usually I'm getting down on my own self because I see like processes that I should have implemented long ago, and now I'm seeing the ugly fruits of that. And I like get angry about that stuff. But the reality is like I can't fix every single problem. I can't. But what I can do is know, have faith and hope, but have faith mainly that God is going to have a better result for me at the end of this than I could ever even dream of doing.
yeah.
And I'm okay. So here's like the icing on the cake. Okay. So I'm driving home, have the worst day ever. Talk to the wife, she gets me on path. Da, 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 like just like life and death's in the tongue, all of that. I hang up with her. And I started praying out loud, and I'm like, God, I did not reflect you at all today. I did the opposite of reflecting you today. And I know that we're called to reflect you in everything that we do, especially in the worst moments, especially my people around me are also going through tough times, just as bad as I'm going through them. And I'm sitting here acting like a dummy, reacting in the worst way in my flesh. And I'm like apologizing, repenting. And then it's just silence, And I'm like, well, I'm going to flip on the radio. I flip on the radio, and this freaking song comes on, man, and it brings me to tears, brings me to immediate tears. I'm just gonna read you some of the lyrics, as I read some lyrics to one of my people that I lead, and it was bringing me to tears just listening to that too, just having him read it to me, which is even crazier.
So this
So
was just
here's the
the random
lyrics.
radio too, right? Not even like a Spotify channel,
In
just random
random
radio.
radio,
Okay.
immediately after I hang up, smoke clouds all around. Couldn't see your face. That's the face of God. It's a Christian song. Smoke clouds all around. Couldn't see your face. Darkness consumed me. Stuck in the bitterness. I mean, dude, I'm like, yes, 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 all of it. But I know there's a light waiting up ahead. Because I was asking myself, like, God, do you want me to stay here? Like, you can't want me to stay here with things going like this. There's got to be something different. And then it says, so I'll stay in the fight and look to the one who says, I'll stay in the fight. I'm like, I mean, you're probably speaking to me right now, but keep going. The one who says this, hold on just a little bit longer. I know it's going to be okay. These days are going to make you stronger. You'll find purpose in the pain.
Hmm.
Hold on just a little longer. Deep down, there's a well of faith. Let hope arise as you're lifting my name. And just hold on. Ah, brings me to tears right now, just like listening to it. I'm like, okay, God, all right, you're right. I'm sorry. Like,
Well,
how good is our Father?
and obviously that talks a lot about kind of suffering, right? And
Yes.
I was reading before the verse that you sent, and somehow how basically all believers go through suffering. And I just kind of want to point out what it kind of made me think of is like everyone is going through some kind of suffering, right? Obviously, we live in a
Yeah.
social media age where everything's perfect. These people have the perfect marriage, perfect job, so much money, this, that, and the other thing, but you also don't know what's going on behind the scenes, right? How many famous rich people commit suicide or get
Yeah.
divorces or whatever, right? So I thought that was like you mentioned like people who are very successful. Sometimes it's a struggle to find God because you feel like you achieved everything yourself. Um,
Hmm.
but then they like you can't ask things to be God that aren't God. I think that's a big thing.
100%, man.
Yeah. Boom.
Boom.
All right, guys. That's episode 16. Please like, please subscribe. God bless y'all.
Maybe leave a comment too. God bless.